The Dry Heaves. Who are they? A rock band only by the loosest definition of the word. They formed in the 1980s, exact date uncertain, and played in the New York rock scene, usually in the 3 a.m. dead end slot until banned from even the sleaziest of establishments. Unfettered by the least amount of knowledge of how to play an instrument, they assaulted the stage and ears of unknowing music listeners with what barely could be classified as death metal. Perhaps beaten to death metal is a better way to put it. Briefly, some intellectuals postulated that the Dry Heaves were savvy deconstructionists, but their obliviousness and chronic vomiting put an end to that theory. Their concerts became legendary as the best on-stage train wrecks. In fact, a riot occurred once when they accidentally started to play in tune. Then one day they disappeared. Little evidence of their brief career remains. Their one LP, Slaughtering a Pig in the Bathtub, is considered lost as not one copy seems to have been saved by the few people who purchased it. The record company that produced it, Lost and Lost, could only get the LP into stores by reverse shoplifting copies into record bins. The master tapes disappeared when the record company's storage facility sank into a mud pit. All that's left are blurry photographs, a single video clip with no sound, and the vague, hazy memories of intoxicated concertgoers, many who are not sure if they actually witnessed the Dry Heaves or are just remembering a rumor. But who exactly were the Dry Heaves? Steve, the career prisoner, has spent much of his life behind bars for minor traffic violations and petty misdemeanors. He made the FBI list as the only serial fibber in the agency's history when prosecutors across the nation realized that he was confessing to crimes that he did not commit. After this, Steve turned to inventing crimes that never occurred until he claimed he had kidnapped conservative pundit Ann Coulter. It took weeks for the Justice Department to realize that the crime never happened, since the collective wish for it to be true was so strong. Will, the mortician's assistant, came from a broken home. As a child, upon waking up in the morning, he frequently fell 3 stories into a rift caused by the family house sitting on a tectonic fault. Moving to New York City after being placed on a Greyhound bus with a one-way ticket by town proclamation, he scavenged copper wire from streetlights. Then his life changed when mistaken for dead after getting electrocuted trying to pull copper from the scoreboard at Yankee Stadium during a World Series game. He woke up right as the mortician was preparing to pump formaldehyde in his body. Fascinated by the mortuary, he became an assistant to various funeral home morticians. Despite being a good worker, he usually loses his job when, due to his dyslexia, he mistakes comforting the grieving with comforting the dead. Larry, the band's singer and songwriter, was brought up in a cave in a forest just outside of a Catskills resort by his uncle, who was convinced that the Cuban Missile Crisis had resulted in the destruction of civilization. One day at the age of 3, while foraging for berries, he wandered into a stand-up performance by Shecky Green and knew from that day forward that the stage was his future. For years he owned a used VHS movie store but refused to carry DVDs as they were clearly just a fad. The VHS tapes were so obsolete that the city condemned the entire building. Now he gets part-time work as a delivery boy for a baked potato delivery service for hipsters. These 3 men, collectively the hangnail of a lost footnote in the history of music, would have been forgotten had it not been for the persistent efforts of this man, Michael Lavalier, host of the popular internet show You Thought They Were Dead, a program dedicated to bringing back acts that were forgotten by the mainstream music press. While obscure bands like the Tree Sloths, Morris and the Drip Drives, and the infamous Gelatin Kickers were difficult to find and bring on the show, the absolute obscurity of the Dry Heaves became an obsession to the devoted journalist Lavalier. But persistence paid off when a famous club owner on his deathbed screamed, "My body goes anywhere where that Dry Heave isn't." Soon Michael had located the entire band and paid the necessary bail. Immediately, the collective suppressed memory of those who had witnessed the spectacle of the Dry Heaves was kindled, and the fame that eluded them in the past was suddenly in reach. Record deals, a reality show, gainful employment as music enforcers. Either they were really ahead of their time, or society had finally devolved to their level. Only future historians will be able to tell. Join us as we observe the ongoing story of the Dry Heaves as they try to negotiate their new lives. Will Larry write a hit song, or at least one with understandable syllables? Will Steve stop getting homesick for prison every time he passes a fence? Can Will resist drinking colored chemicals? Give it the old Dry Heave ho and find out.